What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Ins and Outs of Comic-Con. This is the second episode of a little series I'm doing about all types of tips and tricks when going to San Diego Comic-Con. In the first episode, I had on a special guest who showed us the process of getting tickets for Comic-Con and provided us with some really useful information about how to make the best use of your time and experience while in the exhibit hall inside of Comic-Con. And he knows his stuff, so you'll definitely want to check out that video if you haven't already. But today I'd like to apply some of my expertise by discussing the programs, more specifically the panels inside of Comic-Con. Now, I'm actually far from an expert in this area, so this video will be more of me just explaining my experiences and what I learned from them. Attending panels is my second favorite thing to do at Comic-Con. The outside events are my first favorite, which is why we save the best for last. So at San Diego Comic-Con, you'll never run out of things to do. Why? Because there's nearly 2,000 programs and panels happening that weekend. Anything from hands-on workshops, to art shows, to costume competitions, and so much more. But for the sake of simplifying, I will only be talking about the panels at Comic-Con today. Comic-Con panels provide fans with a way to connect with their favorite writers, artists, producers, and even stars. The topics at these panels range from comics, to movies, to shows, and all things pop culture. Every year before Comic-Con starts, they release their complete program schedule on their website. And this is where you go to see what panels are being done, what day, what time, and where. And you can also see little descriptions of what these panels are about and who might even be there. So the past 3 times I've done this really tedious thing of looking through the complete program schedule and screenshotting every single panel I might want to attend. But looking back on the website now, I realize that they have this really cool tool that you can basically select all the panels that you're interested in, and it'll create your own little personalized schedule. And there's a whole bunch of filters that you can put of like what different types of panels you might want to go to, whether it's TV shows, movies, what room they're in, where, what time, and everything. Now, the biggest, and I wouldn't say most important, but most popular panels happen on Fridays and Saturdays, which is why these days are so hard to get tickets for. These days are when some of the biggest shows like Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead, or movies from the Marvel Cinematic Universe or Star Wars, have had their panels, and these take place inside of Hall H. Now, Hall H is the biggest room at Comic-Con, seating around 6,500 people, all to watch one panel. So it makes sense why the biggest properties would take up the biggest room. And don't think you could walk straight into a panel like this. Right outside of Hall H, there is a big green grass area with tents, all for the line to get in. And this line for Hall H even expands outside of this green grass area. People can spend over 18 hours waiting in this line, including overnight. But don't worry, these are most likely for just the really, really popular panels. There's also this Twitter account called like the Hall H line, where basically when Comic-Con is happening, they give a bunch of updates to like how long the line is, how many people there might be there, and just a whole bunch of stuff like that. I have actually attended a few panels inside of Hall H and waited around 1 to 3 hours, give or take. So here's where the tips come in. Back at my first Comic-Con in 2017, I looked through the programs list and saw that my favorite creators and filmmakers were having a casts and filmmakers panel for this new movie Brigsby Bear that was coming out later that year. I saw that it was being held on Thursday at 12:45 inside of Hall H, so I knew I had to dedicate some time to wait in line, but for the panel before. The program schedule let me see the full lineup for all the panels that will be inside of Hall H that day, so I decided that if I wanted guaranteed access into the Brigsby panel, I would have to wait in line for the panel before that started at 11 a.m. So I probably got in line around like 9, maybe 10. Luckily, this panel was for Kingsman: The Golden Circle, so I got to see some amazing stars like Channing Tatum, Halle Berry, and Pedro Pascal. So definitely didn't mind sitting through this one. Now, I don't remember if I knew if they would clear out the panels in between each one, so I'm not sure if it was like a gamble I took, but either way, at least for the panels I attended that day, you were allowed to stay for multiple inside of Hall H. So I waited in the Hall H line for about 1 to 2 hours with maybe 300 people in front of me. Honestly, there might have been even more because this was the first Hall H panel of Comic-Con that year. So there are most likely people waiting in line for a while. So we were let in and I was given some cool free swag like a Kingsman t-shirt and a Kingsman fidget spinner and just watched the panel. I was hoping to already have gotten a good and close seat, but by the time I was let in, the hall was already packed. But I figured that people might leave after this panel was done, so then I could scoot in a little closer for the Brigsby panel. This was not the case though, because the panel directly after the Brigsby Bear one was for Teen Wolf. So you know the fangirls just came rushing in as soon as the Kingsman one was done. Luckily, I was still able to move closer to the stage and I got to watch the Brigsby panel with some of my favorite creators like The Lonely Island and Beck Bennett and Kyle Mooney from Saturday Night Live. The seat I chose was strategic because I made sure to sit near the aisle of where the microphone where people ask questions was at. Because at panels, they dedicate a Q&A section of the time for fans to come and ask questions. So while the panel was happening, I was constantly checking behind me to see if anyone was already starting to line up for the Q&A, and as soon as I saw someone or as soon as the MC said that they were going to start the Q&A portion, I fast walked there and got in line. So before you get to actually ask a question, you have to make sure you have one prepared and as well as a backup, because the workers there will screen you for a question to make sure that it's okay to ask the guests. And once you go up to speak, immediately there's a camera on you and your face is being projected to all these huge screens in front of 6,500 people in Hall H. And it's nerve-wracking. My face was all red and my words were all fumbled, but I did it. Almost all of them on the panel answered my question, and it was amazing to be able to talk to these people I look up to. And a good thing to have would be a friend with you, so that way when you go up and ask a question, they can sit there in the audience and record you asking and them answering. They also post all these panels on YouTube, but it's still good to have your own footage. Oftentimes you'll see someone who's going up to ask a question, and as soon as they get up, they have their phone like this, recording them as they ask a question. And while this isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's good to be in the moment, so it would be good to have someone there to record it for you. Another amazing panel I went to was the year after in 2018, and that was the Brooklyn Nine-Nine TV show panel. This was held in Ballroom 20, which is actually the second largest room at Comic-Con, seating around 4,000 something people. And I just applied all the same things I learned from the Brigsby panel. I waited in line pretty early for the panel right before the one that I wanted to get into, which I think was like Sharknado 17 or something. I moved a little closer right when that one ended and the Brooklyn Nine-Nine one was about to start, and I made sure to sit once again near an aisle where the microphone Q&A area was. Now I didn't have a friend with me this time, but I did make good conversation with the person next to me because, you know, Comic-Con is a community place where these people are there having the same interests as you. So the guy next to me was more than willing to take my phone and record me as I got up and ask a question. There's trust in Comic-Con. And yeah, once the Q&A section started, I got in line, they screened my question, and I got to ask the whole cast of Brooklyn Nine-Nine something. This one was bad though because I was super nervous and I completely fumbled my words and worded the question so confusing that Andy Samberg had to ask for clarification, but I was able to clarify it and then the whole cast had a fun answer to it. So yeah, thanks for watching this quick little second episode, and I hope you enjoyed my experiences that I talked about because they're really fun for me. You know, I had such a great time. It's a really cool experience to be able to talk to these amazing stars that you look up to and be able to ask them a question, and anyone can do it. I know I didn't really give a lot of tips in this episode about the panels at Comic-Con from like waiting in line and stuff like that, but there are definitely tons and tons of people out there who have a lot more experience than me and who could share a lot more useful information, you know. You could find blogs and everything So yeah, I hope you enjoyed me talking about my experiences, and this has been the second episode of the ins and outs of Comic-Con. Stay tuned for an episode 3 where I'll talk about the glorious outside events. And yeah, thanks for watching.